Welcome to the Vikings Now. I'm your host for today's show, Patrick Siepman. And on today's show, we explore the possibility of the Minnesota Vikings trading for quarterback Trey Lance. There's a report that came out that the Niners are taking calls on their quarterback Trey Lance. We'll get into all that and more on today's show. But before we get into it, help us reach 11.8 thousand subscribers here on the channel. We're at 11,707, and we just need 293. If you guys aren't subscribed yet, free, easy way to help us out here at Vikings Now by Chat Sports. Makes me look really good for my bosses, and I really appreciate it too. Go down there, hit that subscribe button, completely free, helps us out a ton. So Ian Rappaport actually reported this earlier today. He said, sources, the hashtag San Francisco 49ers, I don't know why I said hashtag 49ers, but the 49ers have received inquiries from several teams looking into a potential trade for former number 3 pick Trey Lance. The conversations have been the result of San Francisco fielding calls, not making them, with teams aware that Brock Purdy is likely the future starter. So it seems like Brock Purdy is going to be the quarterback of the future moving forward for the 49ers. And Trey Lance in his career so far, again, the numbers aren't going to blow you away. He still only has a 55% completion percentage, has only thrown for 800 yards in his NFL career with 5 touchdowns and 3 interceptions and 235 yards on the ground with 1 rushing touchdown. But again, one of those games did come in a tsunami in Chicago where throwing the ball was pretty much just impossible. I will say I do think Trey Lance, I still think he's kind of got that upside potential. And like I said, I think the jury is still out on Trey Lance. I really don't know if people understand or people can really make a case if he's good or bad yet in the NFL because he has just not played enough football. He really hasn't played enough football dating back to his college days. Trey Lance is probably the most raw player and raw prospect still in the NFL. He's probably got one of the highest booms and the highest ceilings, but he also probably has one of the lowest floors in the NFL, and he would be a huge risk. But I got 4 reasons why I do think it could work out in Minnesota. Because I do think the Vikings offer a great support system for a young quarterback. Number 1, the Vikings have great young offensive weapons. Obviously, you got the best receiver in the league in Justin Jefferson. I still think a guy like KJ Osborne could be incredibly impactful for the Minnesota Vikings. And number 2, he was born and raised in Minnesota. You know, if he could come back and play for his hometown team, I actually saw a picture of him as a baby. He was having a Minnesota Vikings helmet on his head. It kind of fired me up earlier today when I was making today's show. But then also, a young offensive head coach in Kevin O'Connell. You know how important that is for a young quarterback to have a young offensive head coach kind of hold his hand through the process of becoming an NFL quarterback. And then also number 4, for me, this might be the most important thing on this list, is having a franchise left tackle. Christian Darrisaw was one of the best left tackles in the league last season. If you would pair him up with Trey Lance, he would protect his blind side for years to come. Those are 4 reasons why I do think Trey Lance could work out in Minnesota, but I'll toss it your guys' way. This will be the pinned comment on today's video as well. Do you want to trade for Trey Lance? Just give me a T for trade or give me a P for pass in the comment section. YouTube's probably going to throw you an ad break right now. Guys, sit back, let it play, and go down there and answer today's pinned comment. Honestly, I'm interested in Lance. Like I said, he hasn't played a lot of football in the NFL, but he does have that kind of boom or bust to him. And I do think Trey Lance coming back and playing for your hometown team, I think would just kind of give that spark that he needs. And, a change of scenery, it could really help him. It could kind of get him more invested in just kind of developing as an NFL quarterback. Justin Jefferson, Christian Darrisaw, I'll be interested in Trey Lance. And a reason I think this could work, because obviously there's speculation around Kirk Cousins and the Minnesota Vikings. Mike Florio had this to say about the Vikings possibly moving off Kirk Cousins. He said there was chatter that the Vikings were trying to move Cousins at the Combine. The Vikings would create $10 million in cap space if they traded him post-June 1st. Florio also mentioned the 49ers to be in that conversation. And a lot of this has to do with the bromance between Kirk Cousins and Kyle Shanahan. Honestly, and if the Vikings would create $10 million in cap space after June 1st, they are last in cap space in the NFL. I think that's something the Vikings would honestly consider. And I will say this. If, let's just say, the Niners do trade for a guy like Kirk Cousins, I honestly believe this. I think the 49ers would not just be the favorites in the NFC. I think they would be the overwhelming favorites. If you think about what the Niners have struggled with in just the years past. They've had a great roster. They probably had one of the best 53-man rosters in the NFL over the past couple seasons. But the quarterback injuries with Brock Purdy, other quarterbacks getting hurt like Jimmy Garoppolo, getting an Iron Man like Kirk Cousins who would excel in this Kyle Shanahan offense, I honestly think they would be the overwhelming favorites in the NFC if they make this move. And Kirk has put up great numbers over the past 4 seasons. Again, we say this about Kirk over and over again. His production is phenomenal. I mean, over 4,000 yards each of the last 3 years. Really solid touchdown-interception ratio, especially in 2021 and 2020. 33 touchdowns, 7 picks. 35 touchdowns, 13 picks. This past year, interceptions were up, but he also led the league in fourth-quarter game-winning drives. I do think Kirk Cousins, if he gets him in the right situation, the right environment, he could really excel. And I think Kyle Shanahan could be that guy that unlocks that second gear for Kirk Cousins that he has been missing in the past. But I'll toss you guys this question again. How far do you think Kirk Cousins can just lead a team in general? If it is the San Francisco 49ers, I honestly think Kirk Cousins can maybe go win you a Super Bowl in San Francisco. But get down in the comments and let me know. How far can Kirk Cousins lead a team? I think the question always comes back to it. Can he win the big game? We just showed you his stats. His stats are always going to be there. He's always going to be a very productive quarterback. But again, can he win that big-time game? He's kind of had that Monday Night Football narrative hanging over his head. He kind of put that to bed. He still has this kind of playoff narrative. Can he win in the playoffs? He still has that kind of hanging over his head. And I really think people are going to continuously ask these questions about Kirk until he actually gets it done. And maybe San Francisco could be the place he does it. So I'm going to throw you guys this trade idea your way. Kirk Cousins for Trey Lance, and the Vikings get 2 third-round picks. It's an interesting trade. Number 99 and number 101 in this upcoming year's NFL draft. The Niners actually do have 3 picks. They have 99, 101, and 102 in this year's upcoming draft. But I do think the Niners could say yes to this, and I also think the Vikings could say yes to this as well. But 4 reasons why I think the Niners will say yes to a deal like that. Number 1, like I mentioned, they have dealt with quarterback injuries like crazy. They have had that Brock Purdy injury. I mean, honestly, if the Niners didn't lose all 3 of their starting quarterbacks from the beginning of the year, they're probably in the Super Bowl and maybe winning it. We remember in the NFC Championship game when Brock Purdy went down. Number 2, the Kirk Cousins and Kyle Shanahan bromance. He has loved him since his Washington Redskins days. I think Kyle Shanahan would love to get his hands on Kirk Cousins. And also the Niners are in win now mode. This roster is way too good, and I think Shanahan's kind of getting impatient because he probably thinks they should have won a Super Bowl by now in San Francisco. They're in full win-now mode. Could Kirk Cousins kind of be that missing piece to get the Niners over the hump? And also, I think the Niners say yes. Kirk's got 1 year left on his deal. It's not really like Kirk Cousins has this massive deal where you're taking him on for a long time. I don't know. I think the Niners would definitely say yes. But for me, while the Vikings could say yes, I think it would just be an overall fresh start for the Minnesota Vikings. I think there's kind of a Kirk Cousins fatigue going on in Minnesota where people are kind of just not really sick of Kirk Cousins, but I do think he's a solid quarterback, but people just want a quarterback that could get us over the hump because the Vikings really haven't had a star quarterback since Dante Culpepper. Number 2, Trey Lance, a young, cheap quarterback. The Vikings are in cap space hell, and they've been in cap space hell the past couple of seasons. Could you bring in Trey Lance and maybe sign him to maybe a long team-friendly deal where the Vikings could be paying their quarterback no more than maybe $15 million a year? I would be really interested in that. And also, the Vikings need draft capital. Getting those 2 third-round picks for this upcoming year, I think that would be absolutely massive. That's why I really like this trade. Number 4 is that superstar potential. There's a reason why Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch traded 3 first-round picks to trade up for a guy like Trey Lance. Obviously, now they're taking calls from him, which also you could view that as a potential red flag. But there's a reason why they are so intrigued with Trey Lance at first. Very interesting. So here's the trade idea again. Trey Lance for Kirk Cousins, and the Vikings get 2 third-round picks on top of that. Let me know in the comment section and in the live chat here, would you accept this trade? Give me a Y for yes or give me an N for no in the comment section. Very interested in seeing what you guys have to say. Personally, I'm all in on this idea. I've been kind of on the get rid of Kirk Cousins kind of bandwagon for a little bit here. I just do think Kirk Cousins, there is a wall with what you can do with him. And I don't think it's a Super Bowl. I don't think even it's a kind of NFC Championship game with this roster. I just think he's making too much money, and I do think nowadays in the modern NFL, you need to have some sort of mobility at the quarterback position. I just honestly think Kirk Cousins, I think he's going to hit a wall here shortly, and I do think the Niners could be extremely interested in trading for Vikings quarterback Kirk Cousins. I'm all in on this idea. Also need the draft capital. I would love to see the Vikings pull this off. Love to know what you guys have to think in the comments section. If you guys made it this far in today's video, give me a real one down in the comments section. I love going down in the comments and seeing where the real ones are all at. So if you watch this entire video, you're a real one. Give me a real one down below.